Hey, what's up everybody? This is Tim with CompSci Central, and today we're going to do a simple text-based adventure game.
Alright, so we're going to use Python to program this project, but before we write any code, let's first imagine the end product, and then we'll think about the development steps that are actually needed to get us there. So what we want to build is a simple text-based adventure game that allows us to navigate the game by choosing from different decisions. So let's quickly look at the development steps here. So the first thing that we're going to do is come up with a basic story that serves as the plot of the game. Second, we're going to create a decision tree to roughly outline the different decisions that the player will be able to choose from throughout the game. Third is going more in depth with the story at each decision and then finalizing each path. And now on the fourth step, we can actually begin coding the story with print statements and then navigating through the decisions with if and elif logic. And then the last step is to add a really cool time delay effect to slow down the text enough to be able to follow along and to give the kind of speech parts a classic letter by letter print style. So the basic story that we have in this game is you're stuck in a time loop and you have to escape by choosing the correct path set by the person who trapped you there, which is Kronos. So here's the decision tree. So basically the first, and you can kind of look at these nodes in this tree and you traverse the different nodes to wind up at the bottom of the tree, which is going to be either a win or a loss. You start here, it gives you an option to start the game, you choose yes, and it pushes you through to the next node. If you choose no, you just exit the game. So from the intro, it gives you your first little bit of information, and then it allows you to choose your first path. And you have your first three paths. You have path 1, path 2, and path 3. Now what I ended up changing was on the next series of paths, instead of 3 more decisions, you have 2 at each path. So it's path basically 1A and 1B, 2A and 2B, 3A and 3B, and then there's something when you go through path 3, you'll see in one of the different paths there's actually an option to traverse through the rest of the tree, but you'll see that in the game. And then the other thing that I changed was it doesn't give you 5 options to win and 4 options to lose. Well, you would only have 6 options here anyway, so what I ended up doing was most of them you lose. There's only one winning path, so you have to actually go through this tree, and the odds are that you're going to lose and you're going to have to start from the beginning, and you're going to have to maybe do that a couple times before you actually choose the winning path. And that's what brings us back to this idea that you're stuck in a time loop. The next development step is to finalize the story at each decision, and I did most of that down here, and we're going to do all of that inside the program that I'm going to walk you through. So let's go ahead and actually get started with writing this code. So the first thing that we want to do is actually print like a title screen. So let's go ahead and make a few print statements. Alright, now if we run this, we should just get our title screen here. And we do. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is print basically an option to start the game and give the user a decision to make, which is this start game here. And then they can choose either yes, which brings them to their intro, or no, which just closes out the program. And you know what, we actually don't need this anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, maximize this. Now we have this whole screen, and I'm actually going to go ahead and increase the text size to make this a little bit easier for you guys to see. All right. Alright, so now we've added our little bit of an intro and then our first decision, which is, would you like to start the game? If yes, we move on to our intro function, which we haven't created yet, and if they choose no, then we just exit the game and we say maybe next time. So let's go ahead and run this and make sure it works. We get our title screen, we get our intro, and would you like to start the game? No. It says maybe next time, and it's finished. Now let's see what happens if we hit yes. Would you like to start the game? Yes. Now we get an error because this intro isn't defined, so the first thing that we're going to do is let's go ahead and define this intro function. Okay, now we have our intro. We have the start, which gives us our title, asks us if we like to start the game. If we choose to start, then it brings us here, gives us more information, and gives us our first real set of paths to choose from. It lets us either exit the cave and explore what's out there, or explore the depths of the cave and see what's going on in there, or climb into this crazy looking hole by rappelling through these vines and down into it. So from there, what we want to do is actually go ahead and define path 1, path 2, and path 3, and put all the information in there, and then give an option to choose from a decision in each one of those paths. What I'm actually going to do right now is just define the rest of the functions that we're going to make in the program, and then I'm going to go back and fill in each one. Alright, so now what I've done is not only defined paths 1, 2, and 3, I've also defined the paths that 1, 2, and 3 branch off into, which is path 1 underscore 1, 1 underscore 2, 2 underscore 1, 2 underscore 2, and 3 underscore 1 and 3 underscore 2. But before we go any further, let's go ahead and just run this program and make sure it still works. Okay, so we have our first syntax error, so let's go ahead and line 27, where is this at? Okay, so I just forgot my colons. Let's run this and see if it works. Indentation, expecting an indented block. So it seems in order to alleviate this error, I think what I'm going to have to do is just put a print statement at the beginning of each of these functions. Okay, now let's give this one last shot, and I think this should work. Alright. Now let's go ahead and start the game. Yes. Awesome. So it gave me all this text. This is the intro here. Everything is dark. You feel around using your hands to see. You're in a cave. Then you get these three options to choose from. And we defined all these, so we should be able to actually choose these now. And what's going to happen is we're just going to get a blank line and the program's going to end, because all we have in these functions is just a print statement, and then there's no other there's nothing else going on, so it just quits after this. So let's go ahead and choose a path and see if that works how I think it's going to work. So I hit 1, it prints a line, and then it quits. So now what we have to do is actually go ahead and put more information in each of these paths, fill them out, and then we're pretty much done until we want to add the time delay for each of these, so that when we hit Y here, all this text doesn't just come flooding in. It gives it to us bit by bit, and then once we actually get some like quotes in here, which is like somebody talking, it slows it down into that kind of letter by letter style that I was talking about. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually complete path number 3, and then we're going to complete path 3.1 and 3.2, and this will allow us to make one full pass through the entire game. Alright, now we're finished with path 3, and there's a reason that I wanted to jump straight to path 3 rather than do like path 1 or path 2 first, and that's two reasons actually. Path 3 actually leads to the correct path, which ends up being, let's see, path 3-2, which is to honor this woman's request to help Moira. But the other thing that's different from path 3 is that you actually get a decision before going to 3-1 and 3-2, and that's to actually jump around the map and just kind of like do some other things, like speak with Ares, which Ares is path 1-1, or Artemis, which is path 1. So you actually, if you go to path 1, you'll speak with Artemis, and then if you choose path 1-1 instead of path 1-2, you'll speak with Ares. If you go straight to path 2, you'll speak with Apollo. Or you can go to path 2-2 and read the Secrets of Time, which actually gives you the exact step-by-step path to reach the correct path and beat the game ultimately. So, long-winded explanation. Now that we're done with path 3 completely, we can actually finish path 3-1 and 3-2, and then we can make a full pass through the game. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, now that we're done with 3-1 and 3-2, we can actually make a full pass through this game, and we can actually go through a losing path, which would be 3-1, where you don't take Moira, and at the end it returns you back to the intro so you can start over. Or you can go to 3-2, which is the winning path, where you take Moira, and then at the end nothing happens. There's no other functions that are called. So what happens is that the game just ends. And we can actually go ahead and try this now. Actually, I'm just going to add one more thing real quick. Just a little message to make it clear that you actually won the game and that you're done playing. Now we can go ahead and start this and see how it runs. Okay, that's good. We don't have any errors, so let's go ahead and start the game. We get our intro where you're in a cave. You have 3 initial paths. You exit forward out of the cave. You go to the rear of the cave, or you go down the vines, and this is the one that we actually completed, so we're going to choose path 3, and everything works. So you climb down the vines into the bottomless hole. Somebody eventually calls out to you. It's Hermes. He's the one who's going to direct you to freedom, and he says that basically the way that you have to go is down and face Kronos, but he gives you other options beside that. In addition to facing Kronos below, he allows you to go and read this thing, the Secrets of Time, or speak with these different people. We didn't actually fill these out yet, so we're not going to choose this path. All we can do right now is go forward with 1. And this actually brings you to the end of this path, where you speak with Moira, and now you're given the option to either leave her behind or take her home, and the choice that you want to make to win the game is to take her home. But instead of returning Moira, let's go ahead and face Kronos directly, and that way we can get a losing path and start the game over and see what that's like. So let's choose path number 1. Okay. So here's what happens when you choose path number 1, which is the incorrect path. You go and you face Kronos. He gives you this message that you didn't take the correct path, and now here it actually starts you over. It goes directly to the intro, and it brings you back. You say, I'm in a cave, and then it gives you the initial 3 paths. So the last thing that we need to do now to complete this project is to add the time delay effect. So the first thing that we're going to start with is actually we're going to go all the way up to the top. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to import sys and import time. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to make a couple global variables. A equals 2, B equals 0.2, and C equals 0.08. So we're going to use these 3 variables in our time delay effect. The first thing that we're going to do is use this 2 to give a 2-second delay in between each line of text like this. And what we're going to do with this 0.2 and this 0.08 is for stuff like these quotes that are going to be like to simulate somebody talking. What we're going to do is instead of just printing the entire line, we're going to print it character by character. And some of these lines we want to print the characters a little bit slower to kind of give like a more dramatic effect. And some we're going to do quicker, and it's going to be at about the rate of natural speech, or at least about the rate that you should be able to read it. So that's what these 2 are. So 0.2 is going to be the slower one, and 0.08 is actually going to be the quicker one. So we'll see how we use that right now. We're going to go all the way down to the title screen. The first thing that we're going to do is add a delay of 2 seconds right after the title screen appears. So that the title is going to pop up, and then we're going to have a small delay, and then it's going to print this line. There's going to be another delay for 2 seconds. It's going to print this line, and then another delay, and then it will ask you to start the game. So let's go ahead and see how that works. We have the title screen, or the title, the first line, second line, and then finally we have our prompt asking us if we want to start the game. And then of course when we start the game, the intro just floods in. So the next thing that we want to do is put some delays on this intro so that it appears line by line, and that this text is going to come by character by character. So that'll be a good example of that. This is really simple. It's tedious, and it feels like something you shouldn't have to do. This is like I feel like this is exactly the type of thing that programmers try and solve, is these tedious, repetitive. This is the type of problem that programmers generally solve, which is these tedious, repetitive tasks, like adding this time.sleep in between these print statements. But it's really not as simple as adding them in between every single print statement. Otherwise I might be able to just put it in a for loop, because I don't want one after these print statements that are just meant as spacers. I only want it as I only want them after the ones that have a bit of text in them. I also don't need one after the prompts here, so that's another place where it's just not necessary. So I left it out, one of these sleep delays out of this line, because I'm actually going to do something a little bit different here. I'm going to turn this into a variable. I'm just going to call it S. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a for loop that just prints out each character with a certain time delay, and that's going to give it that effect. So I'm going to start with for character in S sys dot standard out. I think that's what that means anyway. Standard out write character sys dot standard out flush and I'm going to use B here because B is 0.2, so this is going to be 0.2 seconds between each character instead of 0.08, so it's actually going to be a little bit slower than what we're going to use in some of the longer quotes that we're going to have in the other parts of the game. So, and then one last thing I'm going to do here is add another time.sleep. I'm just going to make it 1 second. I'm also going to add one additional print statement. Okay, now let's run this and see if the intro comes out correct. Alright, let's start the game. It's going good so far, line by line. Taking just a couple seconds in between each line. And now we have this cool effect with the text that's in quotes, and it's like you talking to yourself in this particular instance. But it's supposed to represent actual speech, and that's why it's coming character by character. And I think that gives it a good effect, a somewhat realistic effect that you see in other RPGs. So let's go ahead and choose path 3. and again we run into the same issue. So let's go back and put the time delay effect in path 3 and then in path 3.1 and 3.2. Sorry about my cat, she likes to be the center of attention. So let's go ahead and start coding this. Okay, now we should be all done adding the sleep delays in between all the code, giving it that nice line by line effect. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to run it to make sure that it works, and if it does, assuming that there's no errors, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this up in a whole new window so that you guys can see it play through like all the way exactly as it should be. So if you want this program to play not just in the console here, But if you want it to open up in a new window, what you want to do is you actually want to go to the file that you're writing this program on. It'll either say time unraveled or main or whatever you saved it under. And what you want to do is duplicate the file so you have two of them, and then in the second one, the one that you duplicated, just rename it the same exact thing except .py. And that way when you double click, it'll open up in a new window. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like now. Okay, so it works. I'm going to stop it. And just a reminder, we didn't do the rest of this code for these paths, but like I said before, I'm going to leave a link in the description because I don't want this to be too redundant. A lot of this code already is very redundant and tedious, and I don't want to have to put you through that for all these other functions. It's just not necessary. So you can just go and download the code, paste it, or retype it all out if you really want the experience of typing it all out and knowing how it all works. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any comments, feel free to comment below, like the video, and subscribe if you want more stuff like this. Thanks everyone.